The January sun scorched the streets of Chicago as Julian Saber gazed at the city through the mirrored windows of his 30th floor office. The air conditioning blew an icy wind that contrasted with the suffocating heat outside, but even the controlled environment couldn't ease the emptiness consuming him from within. At 38, he'd achieved everything money could buy: a mansion in Lincoln Park, imported cars, international travel, and one of the country's largest tech companies. That afternoon, as he signed yet another million-dollar contract, his thoughts drifted to the single photograph he kept on his desk. His mother, Helen, smiling on a spring day, just months before she passed. 23 years had gone by since her death, but the pain remained as fresh as the day he'd last seen her in the hospital at 15. "Mr. Sullivan," his secretary's voice snapped him back to reality. "Your meeting with the investors starts in 15 minutes. Jared adjusted his Italian tie and took a deep breath. Another day of forced smiles and hollow conversations about profits and losses. This was what his life had become, an endless sequence of obligations that couldn't fill the void left by the only person who had ever truly loved him. He took the private elevator down to the garage, where his driver waited with the door of the Mercedes open. The trip to the meeting venue would normally take 20 minutes, but Chicago's chaotic traffic promised to double that. Jared didn't mind. The more time alone, the better. It was in these moments that he allowed his memories to flow freely. Then, something unusual happened. At the intersection of Michigan Avenue and Wacker Drive, while the car idled at a red light, his eyes caught a scene that froze him in place. A girl no older than 12 sat near a trash can. Her dark, tangled hair couldn't fully hide her face, and there was something in her gaze that unsettled him deeply. "Peter, pull over," he ordered, surprising even himself. "But sir, the meeting—" "I said pull over." His voice was firmer this time. The driver obeyed, parking near the curb. Jared stepped out, ignoring the curious glances of passers-by. The girl didn't move as he approached, her eyes fixed on something in her hands he couldn't see. "Are you alone?" he asked, trying to sound less intimidating than his $10,000 Italian suit suggested. The girl slowly lifted her gaze, and Jared felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. There was a sadness so profound in her eyes that, for a moment, he saw himself 23 years ago reflected in those dark depths. "Mommy's dying," she replied, her voice so soft he barely heard it over the city's noise. Something inside him shifted, a strange sensation as if fate were playing an elaborate trick. Before he could process what was happening, the girl gripped his arm with surprising strength for someone so small. "She needs help," she continued. "No one else wants to help." "Where's your mother?" Jared asked, already sensing his life was about to change completely. "At Mercy General. But they said they can't do anything else. She needs special treatment, but we don't have money." The girl, who introduced herself as Lily, began to explain about her mother, Holly, a seamstress diagnosed with a severe illness. Between restrained tears, Lily revealed she was alone in the world except for her mother, and had spent the last few days wandering the streets, searching for help. Jared checked his watch. The investor meeting would start in 5 minutes, but for the first time in his adult life, numbers seemed utterly insignificant. He pulled out his phone and called his secretary. "Cancel all my appointments today," he instructed, ignoring protests on the other end. "And contact Dr. Mitchell. Tell him I need him urgently at Mercy General." Turning back to Lily, he extended his hand. "Come on. I want to meet your mother." What Jared didn't know as he led the girl to his car was that this impulsive decision wasn't just about helping a stranger in need. It was the beginning of a journey that would force him to confront long-buried secrets, unhealed wounds, and a truth that would forever alter his understanding of family, love, and redemption. Peter, the driver, watched through the rearview mirror as his employer helped the ragged girl into the luxury car. In 20 years working for Jared Sullivan, he'd never seen him act so impulsively. There was something different in the air, a strange energy that seemed to herald great changes. None of them could have imagined that this seemingly chance encounter on the corner of Michigan Avenue would be just the first chapter of a story that would intertwine their lives in unimaginable ways. bringing painful secrets and long-hidden truths to light. The hospital corridor was silent when Jared and Lily arrived, the sharp scent of antiseptic mixed with a heavy air of sorrow that seemed to seep from the walls. Lily led him to room 304, her small steps hesitant as they neared the door. Holly lay in a narrow bed, her frail body nearly disappearing beneath the white hospital sheets. Her eyes were closed, and though her breathing was steady, each inhale seemed to require immense effort. Jared lingered in the doorway, struck by an inexplicable hesitation to enter. "Mom," Lily called softly, moving to the bedside. "I brought someone to help." "Us?" Holly's eyes fluttered open, and for a moment the world seemed to stop. There was something familiar in her gaze, something that instantly transported Jared to a distant past he couldn't quite place. She stared at him with an expression caught between surprise and something else, fear perhaps. "Good afternoon, ma'am," Jared introduced himself, steadying his voice. "I'm Jared Sullivan. I met your daughter on the street and—" "You shouldn't be here," Holly interrupted, her voice weak but urgent. "Lily, why did you bring him?" The girl shrank back, confused by her mother's reaction. "He wants to help, Mum. He has money. He can pay for the treatment the doctors mentioned." Holly closed her eyes again, and Jared noticed a single tear tracing her pale cheek. The silence that followed was deafening, thick with a tension he didn't understand. Just then, Dr. Mitchell entered the room. The physician, one of the country's top oncologists and a personal friend of Jared's, nodded discreetly before reviewing Holly's charts. "The situation is delicate," he explained after a moment. "But there's an experimental treatment that could help. The issue is the cost. It's extremely high and insurance won't cover it." "Money isn't an issue," Jared replied automatically, his eyes still fixed on Holly, who grew increasingly agitated. "No," she protested, struggling to sit up. "I don't want your help. Please leave." Lily looked between her mother and Jared, her wide eyes brimming with confusion and fear. "Mom, why won't you let him help? You always said one day someone would come." "Enough, Lily," Holly cut her, off with a strength that defied her condition. Then, turning to Jared with pleading eyes, she whispered, "Please, you need to go. You can't be here." But Jared didn't move. Something anchored him to that room, to this woman who seemed to guard a secret that gnawed at him for reasons he couldn't name. He stepped closer to the bed, ignoring Holly's weak protests. "Ma'am, I don't understand what's happening, but your daughter needs help. You need help. Why are you pushing me away?" Holly turned her face away, her hands trembling on the sheets. "Some things are better left buried in the past," she murmured, more to herself than to him. Dr. Mitchell cleared his throat, drawing their attention. "Mrs. Holly, with all due respect, without treatment, your chances are virtually non-existent. And your daughter will be alone in the world." The words struck Holly like a slap. She looked at Lily, who stood hunched in the corner, silent tears streaking her dirty cheeks. For a long moment, no one spoke or moved. "Fine," Holly finally relented, her voice barely audible, "but on one condition." She motioned for Jared to come closer. When he was within reach, she grasped his wrist with surprising force. "Promise me you'll take care of Lily if anything happens to me. Promise you won't. You'll abandon her no matter what you find out." A chill ran down Jared's spine. "I promise," he said automatically, though he didn't understand why the words felt so heavy. Dr. Mitchell immediately arranged Holly's transfer to a private hospital where the experimental treatment could begin. As nurses prepared her, Jared watched Lily, who hadn't taken her eyes off her mother. There was something about their dynamic that unsettled him. The glances they exchanged carried unspoken messages, and Holly's reaction to his presence suggested this was more than coincidence. That night, after Holly was settled and Lily finally fell asleep in a chair beside her bed, Jared stayed awake in his office, sifting through old memories for clues to explain the unease that clung to him. He was about to leave when his secretary entered with an old file he'd requested, his personal records from 20 years ago. As he flipped through the yellowed pages, a photo slipped out. It showed a younger version of himself at a college party, and beside him, smiling shyly at the camera, was a woman who made his heart stop. A younger Holly. The photo trembled in Jared's hands as long-suppressed memories surfaced. The college parties, Holly's quiet smile, late-night study sessions, at the University of Chicago Library. How could he have forgotten? Back then, she was just a nursing student working part-time at a diner to pay tuition, and he was a young heir pretending to be like everyone else. The clock read 3 a.m. when Jared finally left his office, driving aimlessly through Chicago's empty streets. The memories assaulted him like painful flashes, their secret meetings, whispered promises, plans for a future, and then his father's ultimatum. Either end this ridiculous fling with the waitress, or forget your inheritance and the family company. Jared parked near Grant Park, where he and Holly used to meet on Sunday afternoons. His hands clenched the steering wheel as the truth hit him like a punch. He'd chosen money, no explanations, no goodbyes. He'd simply vanished from her life. By sunrise, he returned to the hospital. Lily still slept in the chair, her small frame curled in a way that broke his heart. Holly was awake, her eyes fixed on the window as if she could see beyond the concrete and glass. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice hoarse from exhaustion and emotion. Holly turned slowly to face him. "Tell you what, Jared, how you disappeared without a trace, how I searched for you for months, or how I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after you left." The world seemed to tilt. Jared staggered, bracing himself against the wall. His eyes darted to Lily, still asleep, oblivious to the conversation that would change all their lives. "No," he whispered, more to himself than to Holly. "It can't be." "It is," Holly said, her voice thick with years of pent-up bitterness. "But don't worry, I won't ruin your perfect life with this. I only accepted your help because—" Her voice cracked, tears spilling down her pale face. "Because I can't leave Lily alone in the world." Jared moved closer to the bed, his legs unsteady. "Why didn't you ever reach out to tell me?" A bitter laugh escaped Holly's lips. "I did, for months. I went to your father's company, called your friends, left dozens of messages. But you were gone. And when I finally got through to your office, your secretary said you were traveling Europe with your fiancée." Each word was a knife to Jared's chest. He remembered that trip, his father's ploy to keep him away while things settled. The arranged marriage to a shareholder's daughter, which never happened because he couldn't go through with another manipulation. "And after?" he asked, barely audible. After I got the message, you'd made your choice, the money, the company, the life your father planned. I was just a detour." She closed her eyes, exhausted. "I raised our daughter alone, moved back to my parents' farm, finished school, built a life for us. It wasn't easy, but Lily never heard me complain, not once." A soft whimper came from the chair. Both turned to see Lily stirring in her sleep. For a moment, Jared saw the resemblance clearly, the shape of her nose, the curve of her chin, the same dark hair he'd had as a boy. "Does she know?" he asked, dreading the answer. "No, only that her father left before she was born. She never asked for details." Holly paused, breathing labored. "And it's better that way." "You can't be serious," Jared protested, louder than intended. "She's my daughter. I have a right—" "A right?" Holly's eyes flashed with a strength her body shouldn't have possessed. "What right, Jared? To show up after 12 years and destroy everything I built? To confuse her with explanations you can't even give? No." She shook her head firmly. "All I ask is that you keep your promise. Care for her when I'm gone, but not as her father. As a guardian, a benefactor, whatever, she doesn't need the truth." The silence that followed was leaden. Outside, the city began to wake, indifferent to the unraveling lives in that hospital room. Jared stared at the window, watching dawn paint the sky pink and gold. How had his life shifted so completely in less than 24 hours? "For now," he finally said, "let's focus on your treatment. The rest, we'll figure it out later." Holly gave a faint nod, exhaustion etching deeper lines into her face. Before she could respond, a nurse entered to check her vitals, shattering the moment. Jared stepped into the hallway, more lost than ever. He slumped against the wall, sliding to the floor, as tears breached his resistance. How could he face this? How could he look at Lily knowing she was his daughter and pretend he was just a stranger offering help? But one thing was certain. This time he wouldn't run from his responsibilities. He wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Even if it meant carrying this secret forever, he wouldn't abandon his daughter again. The following weeks passed in a blur of tests, consultations, and experimental treatments. Jared restructured his entire life around the hospital, delegating responsibilities at the company and converting a conference room into his temporary office. Lily, meanwhile, seemed to blossom under his care, even as her mother's condition remained precarious. One particularly difficult afternoon, after another grueling chemotherapy session left Holly severely weakened, Jared found Lily alone in the hospital chapel. She sat in the last pew, her small shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Hey," he said gently, sitting beside her. "Want to talk?" Lily wiped her tears with the back of her hand, a gesture so reminiscent of Holly, it made Jared's chest tighten. "Why do some people have everything and others have nothing?" she asked, her voice thick. The question hit him like a punch. It was exactly what he'd asked himself when his mother was dying, when all his family's wealth couldn't save her. "Having everything doesn't always mean having what matters," he said after a moment. "Sometimes the people who seem to have it all are the emptiest inside." "Like you?" Lily asked, turning, to study him with those eyes that mirrored his own. Jared felt the air leave his lungs. "What do you mean?" "You have everything, money, cars, a huge house, but you always look so sad." She bit her lower lip. "Just like in that photo on your desk." "What photo?" "The one of your mum. I saw it last week when I went to your office. You look at her the same way I look at old pictures of my mum, like you're scared you'll forget." The silence that followed was deafening. How could this 12-year-old see so deeply into his soul? It was as if she'd inherited not just his features, but his ability to see beyond surfaces. "Your mom told me about your father," Jared said suddenly, the words escaping before he could stop them. Lily stiffened. "She never talks about him. Maybe because it hurts too much." "Do you think he knows I exist?" The whisper carried a hope that tore at Jared's heart. "I'm sure he does," he replied, his voice breaking. "And I'm sure if he knew everything, he'd regret not being there more than anything." "Then why doesn't he come back? Why doesn't he look for us?" The tears Jared had held back for weeks finally spilled over. "Sometimes people make mistakes so big they don't know how to fix them." "But if he showed up now," Lily pressed, "do you think Mum would forgive him?" The question hung heavily between them. Jared knew the answer wasn't simple. Holly had been clear about keeping the truth hidden, but each day made the secret harder to keep. "Forgiveness is complicated," he finally said. "Sometimes it's not just about forgiving, but protecting who you love." Just then a nurse appeared in the chapel doorway. "Mr. Sullivan, Mrs. Holly is asking for you." Jared stood, offering his hand to Lily. Together they walked back to the room, each lost in thought. In the hallway before entering, Lily stopped and looked at him with an intensity that startled him. "Know what's funny?" she said. "Sometimes when you're not paying attention, you do the same thing I do when I'm nervous," she demonstrated, running her hand through her hair in a specific way. "Mom always scolds me when I do that." With that, she entered the room, leaving Jared frozen in the hallway. His heart pounded so loudly he could hear it. Was Lily starting to connect the dots? Could she sense their connection without knowing? When he finally entered, he found Holly awake, watching him with a look that mixed worry and warning. Had she overheard? Did she know how close he was to breaking his promise? The weight of the secret had never felt heavier, and Jared wondered how much longer he could bear it without crumbling. Holly's experimental treatment wasn't working as hoped. Dr. Mitchell called a private meeting in his office, and the news was grim. Seated across from the physician, Jared felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. "The cancer is spreading faster than we anticipated," the doctor explained, showing the latest scans. "The new treatment protocol isn't as effective as we'd hoped." "How long?" Jared asked, the words barely audible. "Weeks, maybe a month if we're lucky." Jared closed his eyes, feeling the same helplessness he'd known since his mother's death. Once again, all his money and power, couldn't save someone he loved. "And Lily?" he asked. "How do we tell her?" Dr. Mitchell adjusted his glasses, a tell of discomfort. "Holly asked to speak with you first." When Jared entered Holly's room, he found her propped up in bed, paler and thinner than ever, but with a determined glint in her eyes. Lily had been taken to spend the afternoon with the hospital's child life specialist. "You already know, don't you?" Holly asked as the door closed. Jared nodded, unable to speak. "Then you know we need to settle Lily's future," she continued, her voice weak but steady. "I've prepared all the paperwork. I want you to become her legal guardian after I'm gone." "Holly," he began, but she cut him off with a gesture. "Let me finish. I know you want to tell her the truth, but I'm begging you, don't. Not now. She'll need time to grieve, to process losing me. Finding out the man caring for her is really the father who abandoned her. It would destroy her. But for how long? She's smart, Holly. She's already noticing the similarities between us." A sad smile crossed Holly's face. "I know. She's always been observant, just like you." She paused, breathing laboriously. "Promise me you'll wait for the right time. Let her handle one loss at a time." Before Jared could respond, Holly was racked by violent coughing. He rushed to help, holding her hand as she fought for breath. When the fit passed, she was exhausted but continued. "There's a letter," she said, pointing to the bedside drawer. "I wrote it for her, explaining everything. About you, about us, about the choices we made. I want you to give it to her when you think she's ready." Jared took the envelope, feeling its weight, not physical but emotional. "How will I know when it's time?" "You'll know," Holly replied, her eyes closing from exhaustion. "Just like you knew to stop your car that day to help a stranger's child." Her eyes opened again, locking onto Jared's. "It wasn't coincidence, you know. I'd prayed so hard for someone to watch over her, someone who could protect her when I couldn't. Why didn't you reach out sooner, when you first got sick?" Holly sighed wearily. "Pride, maybe, or fear. Fear you'd reject her like you rejected me. Fear you'd offer money but not love." Tears welled in her eyes. "But then I saw how you look at her, how your eyes light up when she talks, how you cancel important meetings just to play chess or hear about her day at school." "She's amazing," Jared murmured, his voice thick. "So smart, so kind. Just like her father," Holly finished, a faint smile touching her lips. "You know what hurts most? That you've missed so much time. So many moments you could have shared." The silence was broken by a knock at the door. Lily entered carrying a drawing she'd made with the specialist. It showed her with her mother and slightly apart Jared. "Look, Mom," she said, holding up the picture. "Miss Sandra said we can be a different kind of family, but still a family." Holly and Jared exchanged a loaded glance. In the drawing, Jared's figure shared the same features and colors Lily had used for herself. The same dark hair, same eyes, even the same posture. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Holly managed, her voice trembling slightly. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Jared remained in the room watching mother and daughter. The envelope with the letter weighed heavily in his pocket, a constant reminder of his promise. How could he keep such a massive secret? How could he look into his daughter's eyes every day and pretend to be just a benefactor? But seeing the peace on Lily's sleeping face, he understood what Holly meant. His daughter would need all the stability possible to face what was coming. Revealing the truth now would only add confusion to an already devastating loss. Outside. The room. Chicago pulsed with its usual energy, indifferent to the private tragedies unfolding within those hospital walls. Jared wondered how many other stories of love, loss, and secrets the city held in its concrete heart. Holly's condition worsened daily. The nurses could no longer hide their concern, and the doctors exchanged meaningful glances during rounds. Jared had hired a private medical team to ensure she received the best care, but the helplessness still consumed him. One particularly difficult morning, Jared found Lily sitting on the hospital corridor floor, her back against the wall. She clutched a worn notebook, writing intently. "What are you working on?" he asked, sitting beside her. "A list," she answered without looking up. "Of all the things I want to do with Mom when she gets better." Jared's heart broke a little more. "Can I see?" Lily hesitated before handing over the notebook. The childish handwriting contained surprisingly mature ideas. "Take Mom to see the ocean. She never has. Bake chocolate cake together, like she used to before getting sick. Spend a whole day looking at old photos. Let her teach me to sew. Tell all the stories I haven't told yet." "They're simple things," Lily explained softly. "Miss Sandra said sometimes the simple things matter most." Jared swallowed the lump in his throat. How do you explain to a child that some dreams never come true? How do you prepare her for imminent loss without crushing all hope? "You know," he began carefully, "some of these we could do right here at the hospital, like looking at photos or telling stories." "It's not the same," Lily replied, taking back the notebook. "And besides, Mom's always too tired." Just then, commotion erupted from Holly's room. Nurses rushed in and out, and Dr. Mitchell hurried past them. Jared jumped up, his pulse racing. "Wait here," he told Lily, but she was already on her feet, gripping his hand. "No," she said firmly. "I'm not staying alone." Inside the room, Holly was having a severe episode. Her breathing was ragged, monitors beeping urgently. Dr. Mitchell and his team worked quickly, administering medications and adjusting equipment. "I need you both to..." "Wait outside," a nurse tried to usher them out. "No!" Holly gasped between labored breaths. "Let them stay." For agonizing minutes that felt like hours, Jared held Lily in the corner as the medical team stabilized Holly. When they finally succeeded, she was exhausted but conscious. "Lily," she whispered weakly, "come here, my love." The girl approached the bed, her small hands trembling as she held her mother's. "I'm sorry," Holly said, tears streaming. "I don't think I'll get to do all those things." "On your list." Lily's eyes widened. "How did you..." "I heard you and Jared talking." Holly paused to catch her breath. "But I want you to know every moment with you was special. Every story, every laugh, every hug, they're all here." She touched her heart. "But there's so much left to tell you," Lily sobbed. "So much I want us to do. I know, sweetheart, I know." Holly looked at Jared standing behind Lily. "But you won't be alone. There are people who'll care for you, love you as much as I do." Holly's voice failed, and she closed her eyes, exhausted. Dr. Mitchell took the opportunity to ask everyone to leave so she could rest. In the hallway, Lily collapsed into Jared's arms, weeping uncontrollably. "She's going to die, isn't she?" she asked between sobs. Jared held her tight, feeling his own tears burn. "How do you answer that? How do you comfort a child about to lose her only family, without revealing she wouldn't be completely alone, that her father was right there holding her?" "Come on," he finally said. "Let's get you something to eat. Then maybe we can start telling some of those stories to your mom. Okay?" Lily nodded against his chest, and together they walked to the hospital cafeteria. The notebook with the unfulfilled wishes remained forgotten on the hallway floor, its pages spread like broken bird wings. The following days became a delicate dance between hope and despair. Holly had moments of clarity where she could talk and even smile, followed by increasingly long periods of deep sleep. Jared had transformed her hospital room into a warmer space with photos, plants, and a comfortable sleeper chair where he and Lily took turns resting. One difficult afternoon, Holly asked to speak with Jared alone. Lily reluctantly went to the cafeteria with Peter, who'd become a steady presence for them all. "I need one more promise," Holly said when they were alone, her voice barely audible. "Anything," Jared replied, holding her fragile hand. "Don't let her grow bitter. Don't let the pain harden her." She paused for breath. "You know how easy it is to shut out the world after losing someone you love." Jared knew exactly what she meant. After his mother's death, he'd become cold, distant, focused only on success and money. That's how he'd yielded to his father's pressure, abandoning Holly and unknowingly their unborn child. "She's strong," he said, "stronger than I ever was." "Yes," Holly agreed with a faint smile. but she's also too sensitive. Like you were. Before she didn't finish but didn't need to. Before everything changed. Before the choices that tore them apart. The door opened abruptly. Lily had returned early, carrying a small package. Her eyes held a determined glint. "I brought a surprise," she announced, approaching the bed. Carefully, she unwrapped a lopsided chocolate muffin, clearly from the hospital cafeteria. "It's not as good as yours, Mom, but it's perfect," Holly finished, tears falling. "Come here." Lily climbed onto the bed as Jared found plates. For a few moments, they almost seemed like a normal family sharing dessert. "Know what this reminds me of?" Holly asked after managing a small bite. "That diner near campus where I worked. They had the best chocolate cake in the city." Jared froze. He knew that diner well, where he and Holly had met between classes, where they'd planned a future that never came. "You worked at a diner?" Lily asked, intrigued. Her mother rarely spoke about the past. "Yes, to pay for nursing school," Holly replied, her eyes meeting Jared's briefly. "That's where I met many important people." "Like my dad?" Lily asked suddenly, making both adults stiffen. "Why ask that now?" Holly deflected, her voice trembling slightly. "Because you never talk about him, but when you mention the diner, your eyes change." Lily fiddled with her napkin. "And because, well, I dreamed about him last night." "You did?" Jared couldn't help asking. "Yeah. In the dream, he was sitting with me in the hospital chapel, just like you do. And he had the same habit you do. Running. His hand through his hair when nervous." The silence was deafening. Holly had closed her eyes, but tears leaked out. Lily continued, her small voice steady. "In the dream, he said he was sorry for not being there, but that he was here now and would never leave again." She looked directly at Jared. "Weird, huh? In the dream, he even sounded like you." Jared felt the room spin. How do you respond when your own daughter seems to be piecing together the truth? How keep a promise to Holly when the secret was unraveling on its own? Holly broke the moment with a violent coughing fit. As Jared adjusted her oxygen and Lily ran for the nurse, the unspoken revelation hung in the air like a soap bubble about to pop. When the crisis passed, Holly was too exhausted to continue. Lily, sensing her mother's fragility, dropped the subject, but Jared could see the questions still swirling in her eyes. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep, Jared found her notebook. Alongside the unfulfilled wish list was a new page titled, "Things That Seem Weird. Uncle Jared laughs exactly like me. He likes the same ice cream flavor. Mom acts different when he's around." There's a torn page in Mom's photo album. He looks at me the way parents look at their kids. Jared closed the notebook with shaking hands. His daughter was dangerously close to the truth, connecting dots no one expected her to see. How could he keep his promise when each day brought new evidence of their bond? Holly's heart monitor beeped steadily, marking the time remaining. Outside, Chicago's night pulsed with indifferent energy, unaware of the private drama unfolding in that hospital room. The next morning, Jared was awakened by unusual activity in the room. Dr. Mitchell leaned over Holly, whose condition had deteriorated overnight. Her vitals were weakening, her breathing more labored. "We need to move her to ICU immediately," the doctor said gravely. "Her oxygen levels are dangerously low." Lily, waking to the commotion, clutched Jared's arm. "I don't want them to take her," she whispered, tears already falling. Holly managed to open her eyes. "Lily," she called weakly, "come here, my love." The girl approached the bed, trembling. Holly made a visible effort to lift her hand and touch her daughter's face. "Remember what I always tell you? That real love finds its way," Lily finished between sobs. "But I don't want you to go, Mum. I don't want to be alone." "You won't be," Holly replied, her eyes meeting Jared's meaningfully. "You have people who love you more than you know." As the medical team prepared to transfer her, Holly motioned for Jared to come closer. "The envelope," she whispered. "It's time." Jared's heart clenched. "But you said—" "I know what I said," she interrupted with difficulty. "But now it's different. She needs to know, needs to understand." Before she could finish, another crisis hit. Monitors shrieked alarms as the medical team sprang into action. "We're moving now," Dr. Mitchell ordered. "Wait outside." In the waiting room, hours crawled by like decades. Lily alternated between silent crying and staring blankly at the wall. Finally, Dr. Mitchell appeared. His expression said everything. "I'm sorry," he began, but Lily was already running toward ICU, Jared close behind. Holly lay surrounded by machines, her face peaceful. Despite the tubes, she was conscious but fading fast. "My sweet girl," she whispered when Lily approached. "Forgive me." "No, Mom, please," Lily begged, gripping her hand. "You promised to tell me everything about the diner, about Dad." "Jared will," Holly interrupted, surprising them all. She locked eyes with Jared. "He promised, and this time, I know he'll keep it." The heart monitor's rhythm changed. Dr. Mitchell stepped forward, but Jared saw the truth in Holly's eyes. She was ready. "Lily," Holly gasped. "The letter. It explains everything. And remember, I'll always be with you. Always." Her last word hung in the air as the monitor flatlined. The medical team worked frantically, but Jared knew by the peace on Holly's face she'd left knowing her daughter would be cared for. In the hallway, Lily turned to Jared, her red-rimmed eyes burning with dawning understanding. "What letter?" she demanded. "Why did Mom say you'd tell me everything?" The days after Holly's passing blurred into funeral arrangements and legal formalities. Jared handled everything, the service, the paperwork, transferring Holly's few possessions. Lily remained silent throughout, her eyes fixed on her mother's casket, rejecting all comfort. A week later in the Lincoln Park mansion, Jared showed Lily her new room, soft colors, garden views, but she seemed lost in the spacious luxury. "You can decorate however you like," he said awkwardly. "I want my old things," she replied. "Mom's photos, my books, the quilt she made me." "Of course, we'll get them tomorrow." Lily sat on the enormous bed looking impossibly small. "The letter," she said suddenly. "You never showed me." Jared's pulse quickened. He retrieved the envelope from his desk, hands trembling as he handed it over. "Your mum wrote this for you," he said, "but before you read it, we need to talk." "About what?" "About the past, about your mum and me, about—" He took a shuddering breath. "About your father." Lily's eyes widened. "You knew my father?" "Yes," Jared admitted, voice breaking. "In fact, I know him very well." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because—" Jared closed his eyes briefly. "Because it's complicated. Your mom and I met in college. I worked at my father's company by day, studied at night. She worked at the diner," Lily finished, pieces clicking. "The one with the best chocolate cake. Yes, we fell in love, made plans, but His voice failed. "I made the worst mistake of my life. When my father gave me an ultimatum, I chose money over love. Left your mother without knowing she was pregnant," Lily whispered, hands trembling. You're... Jared handed her the envelope. "Your mom explains everything here. She wanted you to know the truth when the time was right." Lily took the envelope like it might burn her. For long minutes she just stared at her mother's handwriting. "To my beloved Lily." "Why now?" she finally asked. "Why not before?" "Your mom wanted to protect you," Jared said gently. "She thought the truth would be too much while she was sick. And she was right. Losing her was hard enough without—" Lily carefully opened the envelope. Several handwritten pages unfolded, words her mother had saved for this moment. "Did you read this?" she asked. "No. These are her words for you alone." Lily nodded, unfolding the pages. "Will you stay with me while I read?" "However long you need," Jared promised. And so, side by side on the bed in this unfamiliar room, father and daughter faced the truths Holly had guarded for so long. Outside, the Chicago sunset painted the sky in oranges and pinks, as if nature itself honored this moment of revelation. The letter began, "My darling Lily, if you're reading this, I'm no longer with you. But before I go, I must share the story I've carried in my heart all these years." Holly wrote of meeting Jared, their young love, their shattered dreams. She described his abrupt departure, her desperate searches, the pregnancy she faced alone. But most importantly, she wrote of forgiveness. "I don't share this to make you angry or bitter. Time has taught me that even wrong choices lead us where we need to be. If your father hadn't left, he wouldn't be the man beside you now, one who recognizes his mistakes and fights to make them right." Lily paused, looking at Jared with tear-filled eyes. "She knew," she whispered. "From that first day in the hospital, she knew it was you." Jared nodded, unable to stop his own tears. "And still she gave me a second chance." The letter continued. "When I got sick, my greatest fear was leaving you alone. I prayed every night for someone to watch over you. And then, miraculously, your father appeared. Not by accident, but because some stories need time to find their proper ending." Lily lowered the letter, hands shaking. "Why didn't you look for us?" she asked Jared, voice breaking. "Because I was a coward," he admitted. "After making the wrong choice, I didn't know how to fix it. When I finally tried to find your mother years later, she'd moved away. I thought, maybe you were better off without me. And now, Jared took a deep breath. "Now I know it was the biggest mistake of my life. I missed watching you grow up, but if you'll let me try—" "Mum forgave you," Lily interrupted, returning to the letter's final paragraphs. She wrote, "I forgave your father long ago because sometimes we must get lost to be found, seeing how he looks at you, how his heart opens more each day. I know I was right to let him back into our lives." Holly's closing words were a gift. "My dear Lily, don't let my passing or the past harden your heart. You have a chance to build a new family, different from what we dreamed, but no less special. Your father is there wanting to know you, to make up for lost time. Give him that chance. Give yourself that gift." The silence that followed wasn't filled with secrets anymore, but with possibilities. Lily carefully refolded the letter and envelope. She included photos too, she said, removing 3 old pictures. The first showed young Holly and Jared outside the campus diner. The second captured them on a park bench, deep in conversation. The third, yellowed with age, showed Holly pregnant and alone, a melancholy smile on her lips. "This last one," Lily said, holding the pregnancy photo, "was the missing page from her album. The one you noticed was torn out." Jared took it reverently. "She was so beautiful," he murmured, "and I never knew, never imagined." "Now you do," Lily replied softly. "And now, can we start our own story?" The question hung between them, like a promise of redemption. Father and daughter looked at each other, seeing not just shared features, but the chance for a new beginning, for a love that, as Holly had written, had finally found its way. The first days after the revelation were a delicate dance of adjustment. Lily and Jared navigated unfamiliar territory, establishing routines that honored Holly's memory while building their new relationship. One Saturday morning over breakfast on the terrace, Lily flipped absently through her notebook of unfulfilled wishes with her mother. Jared noticed her thoughtful expression. "Find something interesting?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Just the list," she replied softly, "of things I wanted to do with Mom." She hesitated. "There's one thing she never got to do." "What's that?" "See the ocean," Lily said, meeting his gaze. "Mom never went to the beach. She always said we'd go together someday, but—" "We can go," Jared offered gently, "not to replace what you planned with her, but to honor that dream." Lily considered. "This." "She'd like that," she finally said. "She wrote in her letter that she wanted us to make our own memories." The next day, they drove to Lake Michigan's shores. As Peter navigated the highway, Lily asked questions about Jared and Holly's past, their college days, the dreams they'd shared. "Did Mom like pistachio ice cream?" she asked suddenly. "How do you know?" Jared blinked. "Because it's my favorite too, and you always order it for us." Piece by piece, they discovered their connections, shared mannerisms, similar tastes, invisible threads binding them despite years apart. When they reached the beach, Lily stood motionless in the sand, watching waves crash against the shore. She pulled out the photo of pregnant Holly and held it toward the horizon. "She's here with us, isn't she?" she asked, voice trembling. "Yes," Jared said, squeezing her shoulder. "In every wave, every sunbeam, every grain of sand. But most of all here." He touched her heart lightly. They spent the day building sandcastles, collecting shells, wading in the cool water. At one point, Lily opened her notebook and began a new list. "What are you writing?" Jared asked. "Things I want to do with you," she answered without looking up. "To make up for lost time." When she finally showed him, Jared's eyes burned with tears. The simple list undid him. Learn chess properly. He always wins, and it's not fair. Make a new photo album of us. Meet Grandma Helen, even if it's just visiting, where she rests. Tell him all Mum's stories. Learn to like neckties. He wears too many, need to understand why. "We can start today," Jared said hoarsely, "with your Mum's stories. Help me know her through your eyes." As the sun set, Lily began sharing memories. How Holly sang lullabies, invented bedtime stories, found joy even in hard times. And there, with the lake as witness, father and daughter began weaving their own tapestry of memories, not to replace the old, but to create something new and equally precious. 1 year later, Lily's room in the Lincoln Park mansion bore little resemblance to its original state. The walls, once beige, now shone sky blue. Like the lake, she'd insisted. New photos mingled with old, Holly forever young in some, while others showed new moments with Jared. That Sunday morning, Jared watched through his office window as Lily sat beneath a tree in the garden, studying a chess book. Her original list had nearly all been checked off. She'd become a formidable player, much to his pride and occasional frustration. Their photo album overflowed with shared moments. They'd visited Helen's grave together, where Lily learned about the grandmother she'd never met, and the neckties. She still thought he wore too many, but could now tie a perfect Windsor knot. "Dad!" Lily appeared in the doorway, holding something. "Look what I found in Mom's old things." It was another envelope, yellowed with age, addressed to Jared in Holly's handwriting. Lily handed it to him like sacred treasure. "Did you know about this?" she asked, sitting beside him. "No," Jared said, hands trembling as he opened it. The date showed it was written days before Holly's passing. "Dear Jared," it began, "if you're reading this, our plan worked. Lily found her way to you, and you found the courage you lacked before. Don't blame yourself anymore. Those mistakes brought us here, and here is exactly where we should be." Jared paused, composing himself. Lily held his hand, giving him strength to continue. "There's something you should know," the letter continued. "In my final weeks, I watched you transform. The cold, distant man the world knew melted before our daughter's smile. I saw you cancel meetings to play chess, attempt terribly to braid her hair just to hear her laugh. You became the father I always knew you could be." "You really were awful at braids," Lily murmured tearfully. "Still am," Jared admitted before reading on. "I don't know how much time we'll have, but I need you to know this. I forgave you long ago. More than that, I'm grateful. Our past, with all its pain, made you the man who can love Lily as she deserves. The Lily you met is strong because she had to be, and you're wiser for carrying regret scars. Keep going," Lily whispered when he paused to wipe his eyes. "My final wish is simple. Love each other, not out of blood obligation, but as two people who found each other at the right moment. Lily is stronger than we imagined, and you, Jared, are more capable of love than you ever believed. Together, you can build a future beyond anything I could have dreamed." The letter ended with a postscript that made them both smile through tears. "P.S. Teach Lily to appreciate neckties. She'll need to know how to tie them if she's inheriting that ridiculous collection of yours." They sat quietly, absorbing Holly's words. Outside, Chicago sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the garden where so many new memories had taken root. "You know what I miss most about her?" Lily asked softly. "What?" "How she could find the good in everything. Even when bad things happened, she'd say it was just one chapter, that the ending wasn't written yet." Jared smiled. carefully placing Holly's letter alongside their growing collection of memories, photos, Lily's drawings, even her second-place chess trophy. "And she was right," he said, hugging his daughter. "Some stories need time to find their true ending." "Is this ours?" Lily asked, nestling into his embrace. "Our ending?" "No," Jared replied, kissing the top of her head. "It's just our beginning." And in that office, once a symbol of his isolation, now overflowing with love, father and daughter understood that Holly had given them more than forgiveness. She'd given them the chance to write their own story, one page at a time, with all the time in the world to discover that happy endings come in many forms, but all begin with the courage to embrace a new chapter.